So hi guys, this is a really interesting story, and I'm going to come on to the learning points from the story. You can of course look at 52 First Dates, Volume 1, which has this particular story in it. It's called The Girl with No Name. And what I learned during the course of this date was the principle of owning your mistakes. Owning your mistakes. You're going to make mistakes in life, yes. The road to heaven is paved with stepping stones marked with a big F for fucking failure on them. And of course, as you know, Churchill is famously quoted as saying that his definition of success is going from one failure to the next without losing your enthusiasm. Well, that's not quite the conclusion I've got in Women in Dating, but it's kind of similar. So the story is, I went on a date with a girl, and I teased her in the street when I approached her and took a number about not being able to remember my name at the end of the conversation when we got out our phones and swapped contact details. I said, do you remember my name? And she was like, oh. So this came back to bite me in the bum, because on the date itself it went very well. We met at a funky warehousey complex in Warsaw, and somehow it came up that she asked me whether or not I remembered her name, and I'd completely forgotten her name. And I kind of said, well, you know, so I've forgotten your name, so it happens, right? Which wasn't quite the right thing to do. And then afterwards, it actually just cast a cloud over the whole date, and she couldn't stop bringing it up, even as we walked up to a second location, because the date was quite good and we were clearly attracted to each other. So she kept on making a bit of a thing of the fact that I couldn't remember her name, especially because you know, I teased her when I first met her in the street. It got a little bit annoying. At the end of the day, I called the date short, and at the end of the date, I mean, she actually hinted, as she disappeared into the metro, that she'd be happy to meet again. But by then, I'd got a little bit peeved with the way she constantly kept, you know, referring back to the fact I couldn't remember what her name was. Now, this all seems like a rather little and innocuous kind of a thing to be focusing on, but it you know, it brings into relief the bigger issue of what you do when things don't go right. And perhaps there's no more important principle about keeping your equanimity, to use a fancy word, keeping your poise when you are thrown off base a little bit. It's how you react to making mistakes, not the mistakes themselves, yeah, as we kind of know. So here's a little bit of a quiz for you. What different ways could I have handled the fact that I completely forgotten her name? And, you know, what do you do in that situation? Number one, do you know, try and figure out in some subtle way by saying, I don't know, how do you spell your name? Because you're Polish and I forgot, you know, and I was putting your contact details into my phone and I wasn't quite sure of the spelling. So you kind of like try and find a devious way in order to remember her name. Is that the right way? Number two, do you simply just not mention it at all? Number three, do you just completely brazenly own up and say, if it comes up, I can't remember your name, you know, so sue me. Now that last one is kind of the approach that I took on this particular date. But I think that the thing to do here is, and obviously she is hinting at the fact that you've got plenty of other girls and you're constantly dating. And if you're a guy who approaches girls in the street, she's going to be thinking, this is a guy who's got the confidence to date a lot, yeah? So she's teasing you about that. So really, I think therein lies the key. There is, you know, the three questions that I've asked, you shouldn't, the three suggestions that I proposed, you shouldn't be following any of them. What you should be doing, I mean, there are two things that you can do in most situations. But in this situation, you can either amplify and exaggerate for comic effect, or you can shrug, you know, your shoulders and roll off. Now, you know, if a girl asks you, you can't even remember my name. Well, I'm sorry, love. You know, ever since I got a bit of shrapnel lodged in my brain in Saigon from the Vietnam War, I can't remember hardly half of the names of the girls that I've slept with. I get a hard time about it. I'll tell you what, quite frankly, I don't know what you're doing hanging around a lazy, big, fat British beer drinking, TV watching slob like me who's got about the memory of a goldfish. You know, actually, you should probably clear off before it's too late. And then you laugh, and then she laughs and she says idiot or something like that. And that is, I think, the best way of dealing with that sort of situation, other than, for me, other than the other option is just to, so sue me. So listen, you remember you said that you were really interested in going to the country, to the coast, to Gdansk, and your family had come from Gdansk. You know, you changed the topic. But I quite like this exaggerating for comic effect. And the reason I like it is because you are owning your failings. And I think that kind of sense of confidence in who you are, warts and all, and the fact that you're a human being who makes errors on a routine basis is quite attractive. What isn't attractive is apologising and saying, yeah, I'm really sorry, I don't know what happened, I should have put the number in my phone, I don't know, I had a busy week, I've never been particularly, good, my memory is at times, blah blah blah, so that is obviously being apologetic about your mistakes is not the right way to go. I think either just apologise or shrug and say sue me and then just change the topic, or alternatively own it, exaggerate for good comic effect. Alright guys, thank you for tuning in. Look forward to vlogging to you in the very near future. Bye for now.